What is the state of Milwaukee County in 2025? County Executive David Crowley will give the official answer to that question during his yearly update to the community. But we're going to get a little bit of a preview today. We'll also get an update on the county executive's recent discussions with officials in Washington about how cuts and changes to the federal budget may potentially impact our community. Here to help us get the answers to this question is County Executive David Crowley. Welcome back. We are always glad to have you join us on Connect MKE.
Well, thank you for having me, Denise. It's always a pleasure to be on with you.
Thank you. There's a lot to talk about today, but one of the things I'd like to talk about first is the county's recent fiscal forecast, which was released, and it shows potentially a bleak outlook with the double whammy of declining revenues and increasing cost. When you look at that, what are your concerns that you see about the potential gaps as we look for the next 5 years towards Milwaukee County's fiscal health?
Well, thank you for that question. And we are coming to see more gaps and deficits in the upcoming years, but it's important to recognize that if we wouldn't have been able to get Act 12 done with the state legislature, the deficit that we will be facing would be much larger and will probably be twice the size of what we're seeing right now. But when we think about these deficits, a lot of the driving costs of this is related to a majority of the state mandates that Milwaukee County has to offer, right? And so Milwaukee County, we're one of the, if not the only county, one of the few counties that has to operate our Community Reintegration Center, formerly known as the House of Correction. And we're the only county right now who is responsible and mandated to actually patrol our highways. And so that really takes away from the resources because we aren't getting enough resources from the state of Wisconsin. And so I am constantly, building relationships with our state legislators, our governor, as well as our federal partners to bring back resources to make sure that we can fill in these gaps. It's to make sure that we can, for example, replace our public safety building, be able to invest in affordable housing and public transit. And so those mandated services are pulling actually from the services that we would call non-mandated, but unfortunately, so many in our community rely on. That's like our parks, and that is our public transit.
Let's talk a little bit about where we're seeing those gaps, and other than the issue around unfunded mandates, where we're seeing that pressure occur. So part of it is there's going to be less money that's going to be coming into the state, or the county rather, because of some changes to federal funding sources. What is kind of drying up that's putting that pressure back on the county and county taxpayers?
Well, one, there's so much uncertainty, right? You mentioned the federal dollars, the federal grants, right? When we think about our Department of Transportation, our Department of Health and Human Services, that funds a lot of different services for many of our young people all the way to our older adults. And so that is putting a strain on us because we now have to predict what our future is going to look like, not knowing what federal funds are going to be available. But when we particularly, the biggest issue, the bigger drive, one of the biggest drivers of these costs is related to personnel and healthcare costs. We are seeing our healthcare costs increase dramatically, which is going to take working with the state and the federal government to get those costs under control. But particularly when it comes down to law enforcement, our court costs in the past couple of years have increased dramatically. And because of the amount of overtime that is needed from our sheriff's department to operate in the courts, on the highways, in the jail, as well as our community reintegration correctional officers who are responsible for our residents at the Community Reintegration Center, those overtime costs are pretty much being blown out of proportion due to the fact that we haven't been able to hire and have enough staff. And so folks can always visit our website to apply for many of these jobs. But it's a combination of the overtime costs, healthcare costs, and the uncertainty of what's going to be happening with the federal funds.
Let's talk a little bit about the federal funding situation that we find ourselves in today. You were recently in Washington, D.C., talking to legislators. What did you tell them that they need to know about how this potentially, and again, it seems to change almost every day, but how these changes can potentially impact Milwaukee County?
Absolutely. So not only being able to go representing Milwaukee County, but representing many counties throughout the entire country. So I am the current chair of the Large Urban Counties Caucus, which is a part of the National Association of Counties. And we had an opportunity to really talk about our priorities with our federal partners and leaders. And I really was engaging them on one, how we need to make sure that we're continuing with many of the federal investments that we absolutely need, particularly through the congressional direct spending, right? How do we continue to invest in affordable housing, in public health, in all the health and human health services that we provide throughout Milwaukee County? Because so many people rely on us when we know that Milwaukee County we provide the safety net programs and services. And so we were basically discussing what is going to be happening throughout this budget process and trying to communicate not only what we need as Milwaukee County, but what county leaders need moving forward to make sure that we're not only providing that safety, but providing the services that so many folks rely on as it relates to Medicare and Medicaid billing, as it relates to mental health, and all the other factors that improve the quality of life of those who live in our counties across the country.
Do you think they understood that these changes could really cause significant harm to individuals who really depend upon those?
Well, I was talking to individuals on both sides of the aisle, and I think that many of them understand the potential disruptions that will happen right here, not just in Milwaukee County, but across our entire country, because so much is happening so fast with little information as far as what is the strategy as we move forward. And so I think many of the legislators, Republican and Democrats, are listening. They understand the issues that are affecting many local units of government and understand the need to create even greater partnerships. And so while I took this opportunity a couple weeks ago to go there, just know that we're going to continue to go to Madison, continue to go to Washington, D.C. to communicate not just our needs, but what do we really want from our federal government moving forward? And that is a greater partnership.
When we talk about partnerships, you have established some really great partnerships across the aisle at the state level. When we take a look at those unfunded mandates that the state has that really drive costs, like the court system, right? How do you work with state legislators to help them understand that additional resources are needed for Milwaukee County to be able to fully and institute those mandates and not put the burden back totally on Milwaukee County taxpayers for state mandated programs?
I'll give you a perfect example, particularly as it relates to the public safety building, where we're trying to move all of our criminal court proceedings into one space, right? And one of the reasons why we want to do that is because there are some safety issues. And this building, quite frankly, is almost 100 years old. And so it will cost us more money to actually try to upgrade this building than to tear it down and rebuild. And one of the ways that we have been building this relationship is actually having legislators from all over the state on both sides of the aisle come down to the public safety building and actually giving them a tour. So they get an opportunity to see not only what our jurors go through, but what the staff, the DA, the lawyers, the judges have to go through, and kind of seeing what this will help do for us as a county in the future. Now, this building will help us, create some operational efficiencies, which in turn, moving forward in the future, will help to lower our operational costs, meaning that we won't have to go to the state and continuously add for more operating dollars. Not saying that we don't need them, but there are some creative and innovative solutions that we can bring to the table. But it takes, massaging that muscle, right? Like working out that muscle of collaboration, of partnerships, and helping people to understand that the investments in Milwaukee County is not just an investment in the county itself or the taxpayers itself. It's an investment in this entire state of Wisconsin. Because what's good for Milwaukee County is what's good for the entire state. And so as we begin and continue to build these relationships, strengthen these partnerships, people understand what we actually bring to the table. And it is my hope that working with the state legislature and actually seeing what the governor has also put within this budget related to the public safety building, that we'll find some light at the end of the tunnel and really find some innovative solutions for Milwaukee County taxpayers.
The governor has put $25 million into his budget.
Yes.
How important is that? Because the overall cost of the new safety building could be $450 million.
I mean, you're absolutely right. We're talking about the largest capital project in Milwaukee County's history on being on the line. And so while the $25 million doesn't necessarily get us over the hump in paying for everything, that lets us know that the state is actually serious. They're taking a serious consideration as far as what our ask is and what we can do to help save Milwaukee County taxpayers as well as state taxpayers' dollars moving forward. And so seeing that investment as well as other investments in affordable housing and public transit that the governor's put forth, it is my hope that we begin to work with both the Democrats and the Republicans in the state legislature to find a solution for our community.
Switching gears a little bit, no pun intended, but Milwaukee County has been working really hard with other municipalities on the development of the motor vehicle collision dashboard. What is the dashboard and what new aspects have been added to it to help people better understand where there are traffic hazards in Milwaukee County?
Well, one of the things that we pride ourselves on right here within Milwaukee County is the way that we use data, and not just to make internal decisions, but how we present this data to the public and how they can use this to make decisions as well. And so we're now in the second phase. The first phase of the motor vehicle collision dashboard gave us an opportunity to not only receive that data, collect that data, but it gave us the opportunity to push that data into a public-facing platform for all of our external partners to see, as well as community members. And now the second phase gives us an opportunity to see real hotspots that are popping up throughout the community so we can actually deploy strategies in real time. And what this data will allow us to do is going to allow us to put up temporary structures, collect the data on those temporary structures to figure out what is the best way to move forward long term when it comes down to investing in our Department of Transportation. But what's really key is that, because of our Vision Zero goal, we now have the ability to bring all municipalities to the table to help them look at different designs to help make sure that their roadways and their traffic ways are also safe. And so what we want to do in the next phase after this is start actually bringing policy recommendations to the table for not just the county, but local municipalities, as well as our state partners as well, because the city or the counties don't own all the roadways. And so if there's ways that we could present this data to the state to help encourage them on ways to redesign our roadways for better safety, that is something that we want to pursue and we will pursue.
Another way you've been working with suburban partners is really on the issue of affordable housing. Since you have been in office, 7 suburban communities, which have not always liked the idea of having affordable housing in their communities, 7 of them have now become part of this movement and effort. With $45 million in federal funding being allocated by the county to go to public housing or for affordable housing. Why is that affordable housing piece so important to the county?
Well, as I always say, I think that housing is one of the most critical social determinants of health. If we want to achieve better health, if we want to have better educational and economic outcomes, particularly at a time when we know that many of our residents are facing challenges relating to access and affordability, we have to make these critical investments. And so I have to commend, these 7 communities prior to this administration. We didn't have affordable housing units in many of our suburban communities. But the leadership there and the community members there understood that it was important to make sure that we provide more access to housing. And so I just recently had the opportunity to tour the construction site, particularly in Greenfield, Layton Preserve, where we're going to see 45 brand new units, particularly for seniors and our families. And so this really marks an incredible investment, first of its kinds of investments for Milwaukee County, first housing projects of its kind to have these things, these projects in places like Greenfield, Shorewood, Glendale, Oak Creek or Franklin for that matter. And so I'm glad that this is happening, but we still have a long road ahead of us in making sure that people have access to not just safe, but affordable and accessible housing.
And quickly, Milwaukee County is also the first county in the state to become an AARP livable community. What does that mean? And what does it mean to long-term growth in the community and the county, and also helping people stay in their own homes as they age?
I'm really excited about this designation. Being the first county in the state of Wisconsin to be an AARP living community means a lot. For me, it doesn't necessarily just mean that we are investing in just our seniors, right? Because that means that being a livable community, even our younger people, right, have the ability to live here and grow here. But it's important that we are a community where people can age in place and with dignity. And when we think about the investments in our older adults and seniors, I think all of us in our community should understand that it's not just about, our current older adult population, right? While they're extremely important and pave the way for who we are and where we are today, even as the county executive, we are investing in the future generations, the future me's, the future young people. And I think that's extremely important for folks to understand that we want to be a welcoming community no matter what age that you are. But particularly for our older adults, we need to make sure that this is a space, this is a place where they not only age in dignity, but that they have the opportunity to thrive and age in place.
Always a lot going on, County Executive Crowley. We appreciate you spending some time with us today. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, and anytime.
We're back after this quick break.